The Experience of Nothingness by Sri NISARGADATTA Maharaj. Preface. Sri NISARGADATTA Maharaj hardly needs an introduction any longer to lovers of the highest wisdom. Known as a maverick Hindu sage, NISARGADATTA is now generally acknowledged to rank with the greatest masters of Advaita teachings, such as Sri Ramana Maharshi of Tiruvannamalai and Sri Atmananda of Trivandrum, and the more recently known disciple of the Maharishi, Punjaji of Lucknow. In this latest work, the depth and subtlety of the treatment of the subject combined with the closely reasoned approach, as marvelously exemplified in the chapter The Experience of Nothingness, make these dialogues virtually unsurpassed in the spiritual literature. On a more mundane level, Maharaj addresses 2 points many have always found intriguing. People have wondered, and some even complained, about his apparently brusque manner with certain visitors by not allowing them to stay with him for any extended length of time. In this volume, Maharaj for the first time reveals the rationale for his actions. It occurred to me this might well have a bearing also on the way one reads these discourses. Optimally, small portions of the text should be digested at any one time, in order to let their significance sink in. Thus, one uses Maharaj more like a catalyst in the flowering of one's own understanding and the consequent development of one's own convictions. In this way, the words acquire an extraordinary vitality, and there is a corresponding responsiveness in the listener or the reader. The other point is that it is apparent in the discussions that Maharaj rarely agrees with anyone, even if that person has made an apparently valid statement or given a correct answer to his questions. Maharaj acknowledges this and explains how and why he uses this particular approach as a subtle pedagogic device. The possibility always exists to come up with a more or less correct answer on the intellectual level, yet be bereft of actual experience or deep conviction. In such cases, to go along with the speaker would only encourage him to believe he has achieved genuine transformation, when in fact he is merely repeating mechanically a verbal formula. It is as Maharaj once said, "The realized man knows what others merely hear but do not experience. Intellectually they may seem convinced, but in action they betray their bondage." And on another occasion he said, "Self-surrender is the surrender of all self-concern. It cannot be done. It happens when you realize your true nature. Verbal self-surrender, even accompanied by feeling, is of little value and breaks down under stress." Robert Powell. Editor's notes. The basic truth of what the great Advaita masters teach is essentially the same, which is to be expected since there is only one reality. However, different teachers lay different emphasis on different aspects of this teaching, and to this purpose employ slightly different nomenclatures to use these terms in flexible ways as it suits their purposes. Thus, I amness and beingness in these conversations are generally used by Maharaj as denoting limited states of understanding, which are fundamentally based on a sense of separate identity, resulting from taking oneself to be the body. They are wholly conceptual. Often Maharaj uses both terms interchangeably. At other times, depending on the emphasis he wishes to convey, he denotes beingness as a somewhat superior state, which arises upon transcendence of the I amness, and equates the manifest consciousness. Maharaj also refers to beingness as consciousness or knowingness, and according to him, it is still the product of the 5 elements, rooted in materiality. Thus he states, "This knowledge I am, or the beingness, is a cloak of illusion over the Absolute. Therefore, when Brahman is transcended, only the Para Brahman is, in which there is not even a trace of the knowledge I am." The state of beingness is clearly an incomplete provisional state of understanding, as it is also evinced from Maharaj's following words. The sages and prophets recognized the sense of being initially. Then they meditated and abided in it, and finally transcended it, resulting in their ultimate realization. Whereas I amness, beingness, or knowingness has a somatic basis, which in turn arises from the physical elements, the Absolute lies beyond all physicality and can no longer be described. In the Absolute, one has no instrument to make any statements. What I am, in the absolute sense, it is not possible to convey in any words. In that ultimate awareness, nobody has any consciousness of being present. The presence itself is not there in the Absolute. Maharaj teaches that upon transcendence of the individual consciousness into the universal manifest consciousness, the latter rests upon and lies within the unmanifest or Parabrahman, where the latter denotes that principle which was unaffected by the dissolution of the universes and is a non-state. He also declares, "Please apprehend this clearly, that you, the Absolute, bereft of any body identity, are complete, perfect, and unborn." In his teaching, you, as the Absolute, never have or had any birth. All forms are a result of the five elemental play. This Parabrahman lies beyond both duality and non-duality, since it is prior to space and time. We can only properly talk about duality or non-duality within the physical mental sphere, i.e., within consciousness. It is the Absolute or the ultimate subject, what one is, for there is no longer anyone or anything, not even the consciousness, to experience it. Finally, it must be noted here that other sages as well as classic Vedanta scriptures are commonly using I amness and beingness, spelled with a capital B, interchangeably with a Parabrahman or Absolute, and the Absolute is then referred to as consciousness with a capital C, and consistently denoted by the term self. Sri Ramana Maharshi and the I principle, Sri Atmananda. Even this consciousness is not everything, and it is not going to last for all time. Find out how that consciousness has arisen, the source of the consciousness. What is this body? The body is only an accumulation of food and water. Therefore, you are something separate from either the body or the consciousness. Sri NISARGADATTA Maharaj. Jivatman is the one who identifies with the body-mind as an individual separate from the world. The Atman is only beingness, or the consciousness, which is the world. The ultimate principle which knows this beingness cannot be named at all. It cannot be approached or conditioned by any words. That is the ultimate state. Sri NISARGADATTA Maharaj. Chapter 1. Maharaj sets out the basics of the teaching. The nature of the consciousness has to be understood. This consciousness can arise only in the physical body, and the physical body is the essence of the five elements. It is because of this association with the physical body that there is suffering. Most people who come here will not be able to accept this type of knowledge, because it is on a strictly fundamental level. But some persons who apply themselves and can accept such a point of view will really understand. They will be totally free from the impact of pain and unhappiness. If they understand that the latter can only result from the consciousness which has identified itself with the physical body and suffers as an individual, in that case suffering must inevitably result. But what is the individual? There is a body created out of the five elements, and in that body dwells the vital breath, prana, and the consciousness. It is a composite unity. All living forms contain the vital breath and the consciousness, and although the forms are different, they all contain the same elements. So I ask again, where is the question of an individual? Basically, there is none. And this is my basic teaching, which has to be grasped, but only very few will understand. Would you please repeat this? There was so much disturbance that I could not follow it. Certainly, but not in the same words. Now, what is it that we are concerned with? We are dealing with the physical form which is made up of and fed by the 5 elements. In that form are operating the life force, the vital breath, and this consciousness. That is the knowledge I am, or the sense of being, the sense of existence. The latter is the sentience which is the gift of the consciousness. This is the total that we can perceive, the body, the vital breath, and the consciousness. All forms are made of the same components. So where is the question of an individual? Throughout all this, the individual as such has never come into being, and for this reason there is no need to identify oneself with anything. Yet one does. The consciousness identifies itself with the body, and in this way the individual comes into being. So long as this is a fact, that individual is bound to suffer. And what I am neither the body, which is merely the 5 elements, nor the life force, the breath, nor the consciousness which comes into the body. I must identify myself with the consciousness as long as the body is there, because it forms one unity with it. But in actuality, I am none of these 3 things. While the body exists, I am the consciousness, which merely witnesses whatever is going on. When the body dies, the life force leaves and mingles with the air, and the consciousness mingles with the universal consciousness. I am essentially nothing identifiable in this consciousness, being only its witness. And what I am in the absolute sense, it is not possible to convey in any words. In that ultimate awareness, nobody has any consciousness of being present. The presence itself is not there in the absolute. No person not interested in the subject would want to come here. So one can only assume that those who do attend are vitally interested in the subject and have done their homework. Thus, the people who come here are all Yanis. But how many amongst us know the nature and the basis of this consciousness that I am, which exists so long as the body is there? Each of us must say, I am, and realize it. There is no you and there is no me as individual entities. When there is an imbalance in the body substance, illness comes about. But when that material is in perfect balance, there is no illness. Now, how is that? The question was, does the universal consciousness depend on the 5 elements for its existence? The answer to this question is that the universal consciousness and the total manifestation appear simultaneously. The manifestation happens because consciousness is there. Until the I am thought was there was no manifestation. Both came about simultaneously. But because we identify ourselves with the body in which the individual consciousness manifests itself, and the consciousness, in order to manifest itself, has to have a form, the individual is born, and that individual suffers. Earlier, I explained the question of the universal consciousness. The universal consciousness is something like a name given to a city. Now there is Bombay, for example. What do you mean by Bombay? Can you produce Bombay? No. The totality of a particular thing is designated, so the universal consciousness is merely a name given to that which is formless. I use the word city, not particularly Bombay. I mean any city or place. If I say Bombay, it means I refer to a limited area. A very important point here. To my mind, a city or a nation comprises only the individuals who make it up. A name may have been given by individuals, but that which has been created, has man created it? Out of 5 elements man is born. But has man created the 5 elements? The 5 elements have been created out of that consciousness which is in the individual body. The universal consciousness and this consciousness within me, are they the same? The light which is perceived by your eyes and the light which is generally seen as reflected in various manifestations, are they different? To repeat, the whole problem lies in identification with the individual body and consequently with the individual. Therefore, the individual is ever afraid of death of the individual. Are there any questions on this subject? You are this consciousness, and out of this consciousness is born the entire universe. We consider ourselves as individuals, and that which is unlimited we have limited to an insignificant thing. The infinite is narrowed down to a single body. That is our whole problem. Now there is also this question: if it is the same universal consciousness that appears in millions of human beings, why do they act in such contrary manners, creating all kinds of chaos? If one woman has 10 children, they are all born from the same parents, but do not they act in remarkably contrary ways? Why is that? Because although constituted from the same basic 5 elements, the composition of each individual, resulting from different proportions, permutations, and combinations of these elements, is quite different. Thus each person acts in a different way. Or, to use a different analogy, the metal may be the same, but the purposes for which the metal have been converted into different instruments are widely different. Each instrument may be used for a particular purpose. So the ingredients are the 5 elements, but the eventual object created from different combinations of those ingredients is bound to act uniquely according to its composition. Whose purpose is it, Maharaj? The purpose is the addition of all these millions of combinations. Until I know, that is why I asked earlier, when do we first know the nature and basis of this composition, which we identify as ourselves? Unless I first thoroughly know its nature, how can I know the purpose and the basis of the entire universe? Interpreter: Maharaj is asking you, have you realized the nature of the consciousness? Now he gives an example, as is his wont, of country, homely nature. In the country they make a pancake. There is a fire. They put a pan on it. And then the dough is poured on it. Finally the pancake comes into being and is removed. When the next one is put into the pan, when it is formed, it will generally appear like the previous one. But the number of dents and holes in the two will not be exactly the same. You may have dozens of these pancakes, but each one is bound to be different. That is the nature of creation itself, to have variety. So he says, understand the nature and basis of that which is created as the manifestation, and that is consciousness. Unless you understand this consciousness, no other way of realizing Paramatman exists. It cannot be attained other than by understanding. The mystery of the hypnotic power of this Maya is that one identifies oneself with the body, and the mechanism of this kind of identification does not differ in any way from identification of a chunk of stone or something created out of stone as God and the wholehearted worshipping of it. So far as that goes, it is all right, and this kind of worship will have its normal effects in consciousness. But unless the nature of the consciousness is understood, one will not be able to understand one's true identity. Then, having understood the nature of the consciousness, you will also understand that you are not the consciousness. Anything that you have seen and understood, you cannot be. You, as a subject, can only understand something which is an object, and you are bound to accept it as such. If you discuss things with me based on traditional literature and the traditional knowledge, There will be so many pundits who are so knowledgeable, they will eat me alive. And yet, where the basic knowledge is concerned, which I deal with, why do these people remain speechless? Because it is something totally different from anything that can be understood. Whatever is understood, whatever is seen, is not true. Any questions? There is a hymn to creation. It is well known to people who have read the translations. At the end of that, the poem goes something like this. I can only vaguely reproduce it. He, the ultimate knower, the Jnani. The question now is, who said this whole thing? Who caused him? It is about the Jnani's origin. How did that happen? And in the last line, the poem reads, he, the Jnani, he knows it, or perhaps he knows not. In other words, you are left in doubt at the end whether he really knows the ultimate. Is that true? Would you repeat it, please? Well, it is difficult to do so without repeating the actual text. In other words, it is an ultimate question about, so to speak, the origin of the Jnani. He says it in the last line. But how does it start, this hymn to creation? It is a very well-known hymn. What about the origin of the Jnani himself? You can imagine the Jnani asking himself, how did I come to be here? The answer he gives is, he knows, or perhaps he does not know it either. He cannot be called a Jnani since the very question is not answered. The problem is still incomplete, unsolved. The mystery remains. The sick man is still a sick man. Whatever he says is an echo of illness, and the one who wrote it is still ill. Consciousness itself is the screen. This is the realm of consciousness, and all creations are in the consciousness. Interpreter. The question was, could we conceive of consciousness as a screen on which the entire creation is like a moving picture? So Maharaj said initially, there is no screen, there is nothing. Whatever is wide open. Then Mr. P explained that what the lady probably intended to convey is that anything can happen. All thoughts, all action are only appearances in that consciousness. So Maharaj said, undoubtedly. The session is nearly over. Are there any questions? Maharaj wants questions. He thrives on them. A difficulty in our understanding is that consciousness itself is the object of the knower, right? This consciousness can eventually be understood by the Jnani. Unfortunately, the opposite of consciousness is unconsciousness. So, in the language, so to speak, there is an inbuilt tendency to make this division, consciousness and unconsciousness. Consciousness is being understood, and then what remains, according to the language, is unconsciousness. Interpreter. That he explained yesterday morning. When the consciousness is not there, then obviously one is unconscious. So what are you getting at? Consciousness is not true. You say that to the ordinary person, and then that seems an inferior state to him. It is out of unconsciousness that consciousness is born. Unconsciousness is the source, and that is our experience also. This knowledge I am, this consciousness, has come out of the prior state where there was no consciousness. The consciousness is a state which is now with us, and because of which we suffer. And before this consciousness came, a state prevailed when we were not conscious, and which was a happy state. The session is over, but if there are any questions, then go ahead. If there is no individual, then who is it that makes the effort to understand? There is no question of any efforts made by anyone. That which is to be understood, is self-effulgent. It does not need anybody's help to exist and is merely to be understood. And when it is understood, it will also be clear that I am the dawn, I am the afternoon, I am the evening, I am the night. I am the good, I am the bad. And what it is to be understood is that if consciousness is not there, the world is not there, and I am not the consciousness. I am apart from it. Although consciousness is so very important, for if there were no consciousness, there would be no world, there would be nothing, yet I am not that. But even coming to this insight requires effort. Why does Maharaj say there is no effort to be made? Now that you are sitting here. You know that you exist, you have that sentience. The knowledge that you are alive, that you exist, do you understand it through any effort? No. Your question is wholly correct from the point of view of this world. That is, unless you work, there is no fruit, you cannot eat. So from the worldly point of view, your question is correct. But I don't belong to this world, and in the world this I amness is just there, without any efforts on anyone's part. Maharaj, I am a teacher by profession. In theory, I accept this fully, and even see the logic of it. The problem is that knowing this theoretically is one thing, but actually being it and feeling it is quite another. And that is where the trouble lies, and hence the need for effort. Yes, tremendous effort, being very, very still and not doing anything. That is the effort. The effort which you made when you were in your mother's womb for 8 months, and in which state neither your parents nor you as such did anything. No effort was made. Whatever grew, grew by itself. I got my answer. From the drop of semen at conception to the growing into a baby and his further development, what is it that made possible this growth? That very same principle which from the absence of knowledge has led to the presence of knowledge. This I amness. That is what one is, and what is to be understood. A spontaneous occurrence without effort. That spontaneous happening, that consciousness which has come upon unconsciousness. But how can one know that conception has occurred? How otherwise would you know the child is born? Unless there is conception, he will not grow. And in the person where there is no conception, there will be no growth. Hence, an effort would also have to be made for there to be conception. Then only the growth will take place. Interpreter. Maharaj is telling you exclusively about the growth part. There are no efforts. It is spontaneously happening, the growth. Even there, even for the conception, what effort could the parents make? And even if the parents make that effort, could they have guaranteed that conception to take place? The conception occurs by itself, of its own sweet will, not necessarily because of any efforts. In any case, the efforts which the parents made were not really efforts. They were enjoying themselves. That is not an effort as such. The knowledge you are, if you want to remember this visit, remember this also. The memory that you are is under the shade. That is the protecting umbrella of the Guru or God. Worshipping God and Guru means worshipping the knowledge you are only. So hold on to that principle, the knowledge I am, the knowledge that you exist, and worship it in the name of your Guru or God. Chapter 2. At the highest level, nothing is. At the worldly level, everything is. Forgive me for going back to what Maharaj said yesterday because I forgot. I asked him about the presence of the Guru, and he said there is something saying Guru, Guru, Guru. Oh yes, Guru means that I amness itself, which always reminds you I am, I am, I am. That is Guru, 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 like the sound of a motor car starting. It is a continuous reminder that you are. For this trifling talk, why are we using this equipment, this recorder? Because the trifling talk takes us back all the time to that which is not trifling. Just so. Can I ask a question? Of course. This morning Maharaj said this mystery of the knower and the known should be followed up. The known is not really known by a knower. The known is known because its perceptions, thoughts, feelings are movements in consciousness, and they are known because of their appearance in the light of consciousness. Is that correct? It is just like that. The jnani is the most stupid. He is not concerned with knowing in the conventional sense. When this waking state, this consciousness appears, then only everything appears. Prior to that, where's the question of knowledge, ignorance, or jnana? But deep sleep, is that really a state? Yes, the integral combination of waking state, deep sleep, and the dream state comprises I am. But in deep sleep there is no time. Time is there. Only the witnessing of time is not there. How can there be time if there is no witnessing? Your watch did the witnessing job and told you that you were asleep for 8 hours. So witnessing comes afterwards? Agreed. In the deep sleep itself, there is no time. The one that tells you later what is he like before telling you. Formless? When it is formless, when the form is not available, the consciousness I am is not there either. So in deep sleep there is no I am. No, but the witnessing of deep sleep does happen. The principle that witnesses the deep sleep does not sleep. I don't understand that something can be timeless and yet exist, the deep sleep. You go into a very deep samadhi. Then you will realize that. If you want to meet a state of nothingness, you yourself must also go into a state of nothingness. That is what I call omnipresence or presence. I amness is presence. That I amness presence should not be there. The non-I amness only can meet that nothingness. Still there is, I have no word for it, presence. There is no thought, no feeling, but there is no thought, no feeling. I used to go into samadhis which were just like deep sleep. In 3 hours or so I noticed that many things had happened in my immediate environment. But my guru was very unhappy with that, and he said, "You must not do that." Samadhi and the experiencer of samadhi. Did you get acquainted with both aspects? Samadhi and the one who enjoyed samadhi. Now, so many years later, I say they are identical. Okay, the experiencer and the experience are one and the same. But it cannot be remembered. It is not to be memorized. It cannot be grasped by memory. The manifest dynamic fluid Brahman cannot be caught in any words. Can you say that everything, even ignorance and pain, is a pointer to the ultimate? When you are completely depersonified, you are no more an individual. Then whatever is an embellishment, or a decoration, or a puja to the Parabrahman. But so long as you are wrapped up egotistically through some words, no puja can happen. Knowledge with a capital K, the ultimate knowledge. The Absolute? Yes, knowingness. I don't know how to call it. But that is no knowingness. In the Absolute, there is no knowingness. Knowingness is only in the past. Here we face the difficulty of words. You better not call it knowledge. Pure consciousness? In that state, there is no knowingness, but no consciousness either. It is not possible. It is unconscious. From the point of view of the mind. Yes, because you are, the indication is given with reference to consciousness. That is why you call it no consciousness. Yes, but in reality, from its own point of view, you are talking of the Absolute. There is no I amness. I don't know how to call it. Call it Absolute. The moment you say knowledge, the quality comes in. I don't mean that. You are talking of the nirguna state. I don't know the Sanskrit term. Guna means I amness. Nirguna means no I amness. I am disappears in the Absolute. Yes, a non-knowing state. A non-knowing state that knows. Knowingness appears on the non-knowing state. Yes, the relative beingness is known, is recorded in the Absolute. Beingness comes on the background of the Absolute, so it is known. In the Absolute, beingness is known as an object. If knowingness is not known, who would call it knowingness? There is nobody to call it anything. That is the reply. So I have understood it right this morning. Maharaj advises us to find out who is the witness in deep sleep. All these worldly statements are just to please somebody. Actually, there is no substance in all this. So, no advice. The manifest dynamic nature, don't stamp it with words. Just be. Don't conceptualize. Now, everybody is weighed down by words. Suppose a child is there and the child is dead. Whatever that principle, that dynamic principle, has left the body. So you cannot say what that dynamic principle is. It has no name now. Because of this association with the body, you have tried to capture it with words. So words are the only problem? Yes, the whole problem is with words. Since that principle which has quit the body is now freed from the body, you cannot capture it through words. The dynamic beingness principle, because of its association with the body, embracing a certain form and certain words and concepts, is suffering. Without that, without form, and without words, how can it suffer? All this stops immediately when you see it as puja to the ultimate. That means all this wordy business stops. You may understand it that way. Once you understand that you are not the body, nor that you are wrapped up in name and form, and that you are this manifest Brahman only, you are free. Even the idea I am not free is part of the puja. What do you mean by puja? Puja is a process or an aid to propitiate somebody. Well, okay, would you call it darisma? Call it whatever you like. It is an expression of it. It is consciousness playing with its own. Yes. To a newly arrived visitor, if you are going to sit here, you must ask questions. If you are not going to ask questions, take the rearmost seat. If you come here, you must stick out your neck, otherwise it is of no use being here. If you enter the arena, you must fight with questions. Of course. For years he has been trying to assimilate knowledge, but he has not got an iota of knowledge. What knowledge did you get? The ignorant man has not got any knowledge, and the sage has not got knowledge. Then what is the difference? The ignorant one has to acquire knowledge because knowledge is valid for the ignorant. For the Jnani, there is no sense of knowledge because he dismisses knowledge as unreal. Therefore he does not entertain knowledge. That is why he has no knowledge. In reality, nobody can have knowledge. Nobody can have anything. In reality, nobody can avoid knowledge. Nobody means who? This is the proprietor. Nobody means the one who could refer to whom? This is the proprietor whom you cannot know. Even the proprietor goes at once, so I could not be the owner of knowledge for two reasons. First, you cannot own any thought. Secondly, the proprietor does not live longer than 1 or 2 seconds. He also is a thought. This is all right on the worldly level, but truthfully, nothing is. At the highest level in reality, nothing is. At the worldly level, everything is. Does this mean everything is a form of consciousness? Whatever is an expression of consciousness only. If consciousness is not there, the expression of consciousness is not there either. Therefore nothing is, and this consciousness is an uncalled-for concept. It has appeared spontaneously. So once one has heard the truth, there really is only one obstacle, to think that one can reach it when one actually can't. After one has got the truth, there is only one obstacle. It appears that you have to reach it in order to attain it. When you have heard the truth, it still needs to be emulated in order to be reached. Your attempt to understand it, that is the one obstacle. How? Because the truth has no form, no name, so how can it be understood? But that is something one continues to try for a long period. In the process of trying to understand, you get purified and the process subsides. So long as the food-body essence is available, this consciousness endures. When the consciousness quits the body, that knowingness is no longer there. There remains only the universal consciousness without the knowingness, the non-knowingness state or anything else. Then in that state there is no question of manifest or unmanifest. That comes only with the presence of consciousness. So long as the association with the body essence is there, this guna, this state of I amness or beingness is available. But once this food essence is gone, that I amness state is also gone. This guna, this consciousness, depends entirely on the food-body essence. Once the latter is exhausted or no longer available, this consciousness or this guna is also not there. To repeat, the life force, the touch of I amness or this guna, is not there in the absence of the food-body essence, whether it concerns an ant or an elephant. All the stories of reincarnation, rebirth, are mere stories meant for the ignorant masses. The past is always projected from this moment. Whatever has happened, that is the past. But we can never touch the past. We are only now, so we cannot touch anything which is not now. So maybe there is no such thing as the past. What have you to say? So if there is no past, there is no bondage? But who says that it cannot be touched, the past? I say so. But who is the one who said, I? This means that by the word I, that cetana, that manifest dynamic principle caught itself in that word I. If that dynamic manifest principle does not get caught up in the concept, then it has no birth and no death. Is it possible when you look for what you are that you identify yourself not with consciousness, but that you misapprehend it? Could it be that when you look for yourself, you take this consciousness Maharaj is talking about for that which you are, that you get it mixed up? Yes, that consciousness is the prerequisite for anything. Without the consciousness, you cannot even do that search. You cannot look inward. Please proceed with the question. That is all. But when you make this mistake, when you identify yourself with consciousness, is it still some kind of feeling or experience? You are consciousness. Where is the question of your merging with consciousness? Your consciousness means you are. You are-ness and consciousness are not separate. The you are state itself is the consciousness. Can you follow me? You know you are without the words you are. That itself is the consciousness. Can this consciousness exist without forms? This consciousness cannot know itself in the absence of a form of food-body essence. Body is a form. For example, you are detecting some bad smell. There must be something from which the bad smell emanates. So something must be present. Likewise, to have this touch of I amness, something must be there. And what is that something? Body, food essence. This body must be there, which is food essence. Storage of food essence is the body. I had high expectations in you that you would initiate some interesting talks. If nobody talks, I will close the session and send people home. I have done some homework for questions. I had to jot them down because when I sit here, all my questions vanish. When I go home, the questions come back. You said one must always remember I am. Is it necessary that you should remember that you are? Spontaneously you know and remember that you are. That is why you have come here, have you not? Because you are. Stay put there. Currently you are not yet that knowledgeable to be able to realize the happiness that goes with that state. You have yet to evolve. I don't get it. You are not mature enough yet. And really, when you finally understand, you will realize that all this, whatever you have understood, is not the truth. That is what I realize in my mind. What can the mind understand? Can the mind have any wisdom? Whatever passing show it observes, that is the mind. Whatever is read, whatever is heard, that again flows out, that is the mind. Whatever earlier impressions entered, when they flow out, the flowing out is the mind. In a way, I don't want to ask questions because if I put a clever question and I get a clever answer in return, I become more and more clever and it is no use. You ask a clever question and you get a clever reply. Is that what you mean? Yes, this makes me even more clever and then I start, it is no use. Therefore, I don't want to ask questions. So, you don't want to become clever. The state you want is non-cleverness. Is it something like that? I may become very clever, but it does not help. It does not make me happy. It is of no use, but who observes it? Who is saying this? Who has made all the observations? The witness? I would like to know who is that witness, and witness of what? Well, I can say I am the witness. I am not sure. And witness what? Intelligence? The world? Everything? All that is manifested? How long are you going to be at that post of witnessing? How long are you in a witnessing position? It is the knowingness that is the trouble, the source of all troubles. In the absence of knowingness, of that consciousness, where is the question of misery, pain, or pleasure? Nowhere. Now you know it. You can go home. You've got it. But I don't feel it. I don't experience it like that. I can explain everything most cleverly, but it still does not work, even for myself. So long as beingness, I amness, is there, why worry about utility or no utility? In the absence of consciousness, there is no question of utility or no utility. Why utility? Usefulness or no usefulness? Does it mean losing the consciousness? Did you ever catch hold of consciousness and made it your own, your property? No. Then keep quiet. Consciousness, has come spontaneously. How is it that everyone has suddenly gone into silence? Can we get some advice for not getting things mixed up? Sometimes I take this as I am, other times I take that as I am. Can Maharaj give advice to ensure we don't mistakenly hold something for I am? Don't say I am this, I am that. Just hold on to yourself. You are. Just be. You are. Do you follow? Yes, but sometimes I imagine that I experience I am, sometimes not always. Every moment you are experiencing I am. Are you not experiencing yourself right now? You are? As a body, yes. You know you are, aren't you? Yes, as a body, as a mind, I am. Prior to body and prior to mind, are you not there? I don't know. Are you or are you not? Who recognizes the mind? You recognize the mind, so you are. Separated. Recognizing the mind, you are apart from the mind, aren't you? Yes. You recognize the body, so you are apart from the body. You exist prior to body. Separate from the body and separate from the mind, do you not? Do you understand? I understand. Is that the same as when you meditate and you keep repeating it, the mantra in your head? Suppose you meditate on the Atman or something, be there, recede. Whatever you meditate on, you are not that. Whatever you observe, you are not that. So in this way, reject everything, whatever you observe, and finally settle down where no more observation is. I could meditate only very little through fear arising. You are not the fear, you observed the fear, did you not? You acknowledge it because you accept it. Recede from that. You are not that. Get back. But the more I get back, the more fear comes. But still, you have to get back. You are the rearmost background principle. It is hard to be convinced of that when you are meditating and the fear comes. It is hard to remember. Let the fear come. It does not matter if you are overwhelmed by fear and you are dead, whatever that is. Caught in the fear, let it be dead. But you are still in the background. Let it, the fear, appear to you. Then when it feels to me that I am dying, is that no problem? Then let yourself die. That which is caught by the fear will die, and you won't die. You will be really immortal. I know, I have experienced it many times. You survived, didn't you? So then? The trouble is endless. The fear and the trouble are endless. Everything will go, but you will not go. You will not die. I will try again. What are you going to do now? Meditate. When you say you are going into meditation, on what do you meditate? I will sit and just watch what comes up. and then I keep telling myself, that's something, that's something. That is all, nothing else. Then I will come here every day, of course, for 4 or 5 days. What do you mean, 4 or 5 days? You can come here 4 or 5 days. Not longer? There is no accommodation for newcomers. By all means, in order to thoroughly understand, you can come, but then you should go. Understanding itself is not enough for me. Then what else do you want? Become more realized. Realized? Whose realization? Somebody else's or yours? Your realization. Would it be like this? Making a gesture. What do you mean by like this? I have not understood the question. Listen to my talks thoroughly for 4 or 5 days, and then go and imbibe them. I am fully aware of the question I am going to put, but it cannot be grasped by the mind or the buddhi intellect. Somebody is realizing the unmanifest, but there is nothing to realize. It is there forever. Time and space are not binding upon it, correct? Have you realized that? Is it your experience? No. Then don't ask me about somebody else. This you-are-ness does not occur to you. You are. Is it time-bound, or is it beyond time? You now know that you were not. This I-amness was not. It has come afterwards. I-amness has come at a certain time. You know you are. Prior to that, this you-are-ness was not. So how can you say this you-are-ness is beyond time? It is time-bound. It has appeared. Therefore, it must disappear. All this talk is merely verbal acrobats. I want to know, what is this you-are medicine? Why are you? What are you? Due to what are you? In the absence of that medicine, you are. What are you? Before understanding this you-are medicine and dismissing it, you are talking about a state without you-are medicine. Understand what it is. My state is, I am without parents. I am the unborn. Similarly, I understand you as such only. You are also the unborn without parents. I have been telling you again and again that you exist is due to that you are medicine. It has a certain period of time. Again and again I have been telling you that, and still you are putting the same basic question. Someone asked me a queer question. I am responsible for the birth of 50 children. Due to what are they born? That was his question. Suppose your father asked such a silly question of somebody else. All this talking about the manifest and unmanifest is mere talk for the sake of entertainment. First, find out, what is this medicine you are? Due to what? When you recognize and transcend that, you are a Mahatma, and people will come and talk to you. Have you understood this principle, I am? When spiritually experienced people come here, they enter into a dialogue just for entertainment. In the true state, nothing is. All this spiritual talk is spiritual jargon. You can talk in the world to the ignorant masses. You can convey any number of concepts to them. Let me give you an example. In certain parts of our country, when a person is dead, his ornaments are given to a barber, because from the barber they will go to the dead person. That is the concept. And such concepts are all for the ignorant people. But you can't very well tell such stories here when discussing profound spiritual matters. Ultimately, what are these spiritual talks? They are meant for so long as ignorance prevails. To remove ignorance, so-called knowledge is necessary. The knowledge removes the ignorance, and then itself also goes. Both knowledge and ignorance are thrown overboard. What remains is the absolute. Take, for example, the questions of rebirth and reincarnation. In this manifest play of the 5 elements, there is no entity as such, no individual or personality. Out of the 5 elemental play, when the quintessence of that play in the form of the food essence appeared, in a certain form, the moment is there. That is the normal, ignorant personality. So long as that food essence body is available with that vital breath, the life force is there. That is the birth. When the body is not available, we call it death. Then again, rebirth. Rebirth of what? Of the 5 elemental play. There is no birth of a certain personality of this or that fellow. The question does not even arise. When the body dies, it means there is no pain after death of the body. What do you mean by death of the body? Does the body die? Can this die? Can this cigarette lighter die? But that is not a living thing. If you make a flame, it is full of life and fire. When the vital breath quits the body, this quality of I amness also disappears. That is where the air becomes manifest. It merges with the universal air. This I amness, the consciousness, also merges with the universal consciousness. In that state, there is no knowingness, and the body becomes one with the 5 elements. Where is the death? When the flame is extinguished, would you call it death? In other words, when this is completely consumed, is it not death? You may call it death also. Chapter 3. A true sage is he who has transcended the personality. There are many people who purport to speak about truth, but only a few can be truly convincing. Why is that? Why, do you ask me? How can I tell you? Somebody did not get a child, and you are asking me, why did I not get a child? Such questions have no place or relevance here. This philosophy has already been explained to you. Why do you ask such questions? Ask only about your own self. To talk on this matter will be perfectly all right, but I have no energy to talk about random matters. Talk only about the self, and I will come straight to the point and explain matters to you, but no other topics. Did you get knowledge from me or somebody else? I think mostly from my own self. If that is the case, you are getting knowledge through your own self. You should not have been coming here in the first place. I did not mean to say all knowledge or the ultimate knowledge. Interpreter. Maharaj wants to know whatever you are getting here. What other masters have expounded knowledge to you? He wants to know what your sources are, what you have read, or from whom you have heard anything else. I started off with drugs, then I listened to Walter Kears and ended up listening to Maharaj. Since you said that your knowledge has sprouted in your own self, then don't come back tomorrow. Yes, but that was only knowledge of changes, not knowledge of the I Am or the changeless. If you really did get the knowledge through you, why should I break my head over you? Interpreter. Don't ask irrelevant questions, for the Maharaj tires easily. Just because he is available to us does not mean we should fling any question at him. I have to suffer for all my talks physically. Most of us come from Europe, where we don't have this guru-disciple tradition, and so we don't know how to behave. Here, traditionally, the guru is the highest god, the god of the gods. One who has understood this, that the consciousness which has been restricted to the body is in reality limitless, universal consciousness. If he has accepted this conviction, what more does he need? Whatever I say is from the point of view that I am without body-mind. And if you want to accept whatever I say from the point of view that you are body-mind, and expect to get something from it as a similar object, how can it be of use? I repeat, whatever I say is from the conviction I am without the body, that I am nobody. Therefore, if someone wants to understand that but remains himself identified with the body, how can he ever hope to grasp what I am trying to convey? Any questions? Put them, but understand that we are speaking and asking on the basis that we do not have a body. There is a body, and the body is suffering, but I know that I am not the body. I am the universal consciousness. I will not talk about what is being generally talked about elsewhere on the mistaken notion that they are discussing spiritual knowledge. I will only speak about one's own self. I will not fool people because I want them to come here and they come to me as a guru. What is to be understood is that I, the self, comprises all things. This unity is to be understood thoroughly. Can there be anything else but one? There have been any number of avatars. They have gone, but their bodies have merged into the 5 elements. Has anything changed? The self continues to be what it was for millions of years. Understand this as pure mind, and anything else is tomfoolery. Consciousness within the body gets itself entangled in the various concepts which it has been given, and which it has acquired and now considers as part of itself. In what I am saying now, I give a picture of what you think yourselves to be. The Ani knows that this is totally untrue, and he knows the truth. Thought can never understand this. It takes a while before thoughts are completely exhausted and stop trying to understand. The understanding sinks in the moment the seeker disappears. Only when one is convinced about this totally, there is nothing further that anyone can tell you and nothing further to be understood. Where is even the question of conviction? The body is going to disappear and mingle with the 5 elements. The breath will mingle with the air, and the consciousness with the universal consciousness. It is as simple as that. Be without the body first, and then whatever words emerge will be knowledge itself. They will not be coming from a particular apparatus. The words will be knowledge itself. The body is of the nature of food, and if there is an illness, it is an illness on the body, because there has been an imbalance in what constitutes the body. How am I concerned? This life force, the breath, and consciousness, they are like the sun and sunlight. There is so much unity in that they are really one. So when one disappears, the other also goes. To start with, if you cannot consider yourself as consciousness, at least consider yourself the life force. Because the two are one, but in any case not the body. The life force and the consciousness are always free. But because they have been associated themselves with the body, the bondage has come about. Once you decide that you are not the body, and this conviction grows, your body will be all the healthier for it. Is that the carrot to make the donkey run? That you will know best yourself. This consciousness that I am the original, I am the landlord, not the tenant. Take any concept that you like, but don't look to me for giving you any further concepts. You may adopt any concept that will make you happy, but remember it is still only a concept. Suppose you are sitting quietly. Suddenly thought appears and we are very, very unhappy. Then some other thought comes, and the original thought and the unhappiness both disappear. So long as one depends on the mind will always make us unhappy. What is suffering really? Suffering is only something which has been engendered by a thought or a word, the mind. If that does not arise, where is the question of unhappiness? Whatever knowledge I give is always free and open, but the one who receives it, if he does not keep himself open to receptivity, what can I do? On this point, are there any questions? Your speech, that breath of words, that breath of thought, that breath of mind, is it with the body, or is it without the body? The speech is without the body, the mind is without the body, the life force is without the body, and whatever happens is through the effect of the life force. The life force signifies movement. Consciousness is movement. Only when I interpret what is in the mind do I become happy or unhappy. So long as the mind does not work and there is no interpretation, there is no question of being happy or unhappy. Whatever you consider as happiness or unhappiness, sin or merit, heaven or hell, all those depend entirely on the meaning of the words. And that is the word, that is the thought, and that is the mind. I repeat, One who has understood this, I will not have him here. But those who think they have understood and are still in the process of digesting it and come here with great zeal and sincerity, to them I will tell them in brief words what the position is and then send them out too. Unless there is consciousness, how can there be concepts of ether and atmosphere, the sky and space? The consciousness is always the prime factor, and the life force and this consciousness within the body are bound to disappear. The manner in which the subject is being discussed here, is it at all similar to that in which your guru was expounding the subject? Of course, that depends very much on who was there. Sometimes the approach was more like this, other times more like that. Why do I talk in such a fashion? This could be misunderstood. I speak the way I like because I know that I am nobody and no thing. Therefore I come and I feel obliged to speak. I am and I am not, and I am neither the presence nor the absence. That is why I say whatever comes up. Anyone who is conscious of his presence will not talk in such open fashion. I apperceived what is, and I also apperceived what is not. And when both what is and what is not have disappeared, then what remains is I. I am certainly not presence and not even the presence of the absence. All knowledge anyone, however great, can have is that knowledge which one has at that split second, when he is not asleep and not even awake. He cannot say what sleep was, for in sleep he is not consciously present. All he can say is something when he is awake, when the consciousness is there. Take the case of a jnani. He does have jnana. But is he able to say from where his knowledge has arisen? Knowledge has arisen from a point where there was no knowledge. How did it arise? What is its nature? Those who have come here and have had knowledge, how will they be able to convey it to others? What really happens in the world is somebody gathers a lot of material. Somebody's judgment and somebody else's judgment. A number of judgments are collected, and the whole combination he considers the capital of his knowledge. And it is only that which he can distribute. They merely exchange views. Shankara said this, and Buddha said that, and somebody else says something else. In this fashion they exchange views and call it jnana. But the one who passes on these opinions of others when they give these judgments, was he there? Was it the state of affairs when one understood the presence of the other, and both understood each other's presence? If that was the case, then it is different. But merely parroting the opinions of others, that is not knowledge. Things that happened in the past, as well as judgments given in the past, are being exchanged among a group of people who then call that knowledge. That primary concept which is I love. Not only that I exist, but I love. That is the basic concept which brings about the assumption of all other concepts by people. For years and years I may not know that I was going to be born. Even the day prior to the conception, I did not know I was going to be conceived. And then, after 9 months, the body is born, and after a few months, when the consciousness is actively working, I realize that I am born. I consider you a jnani, and I want an answer from you. What was born and how was it born? That is, as far as you are concerned. Only the idea, I am. Who told you about this? My parents. They told me I have a body, a character, and so on. That is all. Whatever knowledge you have is hearsay. That is my point. How can somebody who does not have knowledge of his true self be a guru? Only he can be a guru who has knowledge of his true nature. If one knew that he was going to be born, he would refuse. He would not have accepted the proposition that he should go in the food. Thank you, I'll pass. I don't want it. In that state which prevails after the dropping of the body, is there any memory? Conventionally or traditionally, people say there is still memory after the body goes. I do not believe that, because there is no experience of it. So long as the body is there, the mind is there. and the mind creates an individually made memory pattern. Therefore, the individuality is there. When you are the manifest state with the consciousness, there is no play of mind and therefore no individuality. You are the manifest only. So if at all thoughts occur, they will not be related to the individualistic idea that manifests about nature only. What about the sages who are dead and gone? Whatever state they had prior to assuming a body, they have reverted to that original state. This knowingness, consciousness, I amness, comes only with the body that is given. When a Jnani does not have a body, he does not need anything. He is consciousness. Interpreter: In your country also there might be sages. So I said to Maharaj, the way we accept sages here with great reverence and awe is probably not customary there. There may be others, I don't really know. They have probably heard about sages like Ramana Maharshi because through Maharshi they came to know about the possibility of self-realization. A sage is one who has transcended individuality, personality, and abides in the manifest consciousness. So the yardstick is his abidance in consciousness. That manifest consciousness expresses itself to a particular body, that is the sage. But that body has no individuality. Such entities only are true sages, being the background of manifest consciousness. Before coming to India, I had tried everywhere to get answers to my questions, but nobody would give them. I tried everyone, Catholics, Protestants, but no one could answer my fundamental questions. Why did they not answer? They did not know. For example, everybody was talking about the soul, so I said, what is the soul? Nobody knew. All these people were using the word without explaining what it means. Soul is not Atma. Atma is impersonal. Soul is a kind of spiritual personality. The soul is a mixture of Atma and Jiva. Do you understand what is the Atma? That which remains when thought vanishes? And when the thought is there, what is it? When we are still, the Atma conditioned, consciousness conditioned by thought. The Atma is that which never changes, which all thoughts, fears, and sense perceptions have in common. Interpreter: You said when thoughts are not there, but when the thoughts are there, Atma is also there. It is that which all thoughts and feelings have in common. It is something which is present in every thought, every feeling, and every sense perception which does not change. Whatever you are, that consciousness, the knowingness, that itself is the Atma. When you understand that consciousness with the identity of the body, you suffer. A guru feels exhilarated when he sees that the disciple has become mature in spirituality, is growing from the inside. We must talk when it is indicative of that maturing only. I expect questions from you at your proper level. Don't send questions at lower levels. At my level, I am only interested in silence. Your talk is of such a high caliber or at such a high level that it is not intelligible to the common man of any religion. A Christian worships Jesus Christ. A Muslim believes in the Prophet or God. Hindus worship so many gods, but you do not do any of this. You do not discuss any of the rituals of worshipping or doing this and that. You don't believe in all this, so your talking is really useless. Whatever you are, that you are, the consciousness, the Atman, or the self in you. That itself is nothing other than God. All the names and titles of other gods are meant for you only. You are the knowledge I am. So if you want to worship, worship that knowledge I am. Be devoted to that I amness only. When you do that, all other rituals become redundant, useless. Finally, when you realize that everything is useless, everything is Brahman, it means you are at the Para-Brahman level, the absolute level. When at that level, you will envision everything as useless, including the Brahman, because the Brahman is also reduced to illusion. Therefore, all these talks, including my own, will be reduced to illusion when you reach the highest. then all this worshipping will be put to rest. If a human being has the inclination towards devotion, it gives rise to a certain mood, feelings of adoration and worship. However, the godly state, the consciousness or beingness, transcends even this emotional state. How to transcend such an emotional state? For this purpose, certain practices are recommended. Emotions should be sublimated. You cannot expel or suppress them, for the emotional side of us is part and parcel of human nature, certainly at the lower stages. I want to know my own Atman. How should I proceed? You are, that itself is the Atman. Atman is not to know anything. That very knowledge is the Atman. Worship Atman as the God. Therefore, there is nothing else. You worship that principle only. Nothing else needs to be done. This very knowledge you are will lead to the highest, to the ultimate. This you are is there so long as the vital breath is present. When you worship that you are as the manifest Brahman only, you reach immortality. Suppose you pass on, in common parlance, death occurs to you, then that you are knowledge will be the manifest knowledge only, and it will not die. Who are you? You know you are sitting here. You know you are, without words. Just be that you are only. I don't like to use flowery, redundant language to put all this into words. I will come straight to the point. How many sages are going to talk from the standpoint of the self only? There is only Atman. He is the space Atman, the fire Atman, the water Atman. They are all the same for the 5 elements. The one who has the firm conviction that except for the I amness, there is no other self, he stabilizes in the Pada Brahman. The one who abides in that principle by which he knows I am, he is the manifest. He abides in that manifest Brahman all the 24 hours. Whether the body remains or not, that manifest self-principle always prevails. In that form comes the knowledge I am. With the knowledge I am, with the consciousness, with the self, the human particle is significant. Who are they who have propounded the worship of deities and finally the self? Only those personalities, those sages who understood and transcended the very source of this manifest world, this beingness, this touch of I amness, advocated to the masses the worship of the gods, ultimately leading to the beingness. You must continually remember, Chu the Cud, that the knowledge I am signifies knowing all the gods, all the Vedas. It is the Brahman only. You must continually think about it. And should in the course of such reminiscing the body drop off, then that consciousness will definitely be the highest.